Someone dropped a bug in my mailbox. Amateur hour, but still, they tried. Rusty started acting weird, too. Tail tucked whenever Karen's men rolled through. I chalked it up to old age, but looking back, he'd smelled danger way before I did. Thing is, I'm not just some cranky retiree. They didn't know I was Pine County's police chief for 25 years, spent most of that busting fraud rings, exposing dirty HOAs, following money trails overseas. And Karen's name? Already popped up in an old file, helping some developers get a little too cozy with foreign investors. It went from harassment to all-out war when I dug into the old evidence. My cabin wasn't just some real estate prize. It was the last piece tying Crimson Holdings and Augustus Crane, the real puppet master. Pixelated, and get this, they listed Pine County, Montana. We're in Idaho. Amateur mistakes that only fools or fakes make. They tried to bully me, but when you've worn a real badge, you spot the cracks fast. Their radios didn't work, holsters on backwards. Honestly, it would have been funny if Rusty wasn't bleeding in the corner. I went into cop mode, calm as you like. While I patched Rusty up, I started pushing. Where's your body cam? Why isn't backup calling this in? Morrison had nothing. When I let my old badge slip into view, he went white as a sheet. Realized. Remember? And the way Rusty trembled at Morrison's voice? I put it together right there. Morrison was the trooper who killed my son. And suddenly, Morrison cracked. He admitted it. Thing live to the internet. Thanks to a backup camera system I'd installed after the HOA started getting too close. That's right. While Morrison's men bailed, I went live, broadcasted the confession. The shooting, the whole crooked show to thousands of people, including my daughter Sarah at DHS, who immediately started connecting the dots for federal agencies. Within minutes, the chat filled up with angry viewers, veterans, law enforcement, neighbors, complete strangers, everyone watching justice in real time. Morrison tried to threaten me again, desperate, but the evidence was piling up. Leg twitching every time someone new came in the door. I knelt next to him, whispered, "You did good, partner. Real good." He just wagged his tail, like all he'd ever wanted was for someone to believe him. Outside, the cabin had turned into a media circus, satellite vans, reporters with perfect hair, neighbors gawking, drone cameras buzzing. I never liked attention, but suddenly everyone wanted a piece of my story. The sheriff shook my hand, reporters shoved microphones in my face, strangers dropped off food, cards, stuffed animals for Rusty. I guess when the bad guys finally lose, folks want to be part of something that feels like justice. But beneath all that noise, the real work was only beginning. Sarah flew in from D.C. the next day, dark circles under her eyes. Still in her DHS badge lanyard and a hoodie that said, "I pause my game for justice." We sat together on the front steps, watching as federal marshals cataloged every inch of evidence from the basement. She leaned against me, just like she did when she was a kid, and said, "Dad, you know this isn't just about us anymore, right?" And she was right. Our little war had ripped the lid off a countrywide rot. Within a week, every news network in America was running stories about HOAs, shell companies, foreign money buying up neighborhoods, and regular folks being pushed out by bullies, hiding behind bylaws. Congress got in on the act. Hearings, new bills. Suddenly everyone in Washington cared about community justice. The thing that amazed me most, though, was the people. Out of nowhere, veterans, single moms, retirees, immigrant families, folks I'd never met, started telling their own stories online. They'd been silenced for years, some bullied out of homes. Others threatened, some just ignored. My story gave them a kind of permission to stand up. And Rusty? That old dog became a legend overnight. Donations poured in for his recovery, vets and therapists, volunteering from all over. The first time he stood up and limped across the living room, tail wagging, there were a dozen people crying, me included. Someone sent him a badge and a blue bandana that said, "Real cop's dog," and I swear he stood a little taller with it on. Sarah started recording short videos of him, sharing tips about reading a dog's signals, teaching people how to spot trauma in their own pets and their own communities. I spent those weeks answering calls from federal investigators, journalists, even law students. I kept thinking about Ethan, about the days we'd spent fishing off that dock or playing chess in the lamplight. It felt wrong that he wasn't here to see what his sacrifice had sparked. The guilt and grief never really go away, you know? But there's a kind of peace that comes from knowing his story changed the country. Here's where it gets crazier. A few months in, the Department of Justice set up a new task force, Community Integrity Unit, they called it. Guess who they asked to consult? Yours truly. Me and Sarah went to D.C., sat in on meetings with people in $1,000 suits, teaching them how to read between the lines of HOA documents, how to spot a fake badge, how to listen to the right whispers in a community. Rusty, wearing his blue bandana, became the unofficial mascot. Even the Attorney General knelt down and scratched behind his ears, whispering, "Thank you for your service." Meanwhile, federal agents swept across the country, raiding dozens of HOA offices, seizing mountains of paperwork, freezing assets. You'd hear about some high-rolling developer getting cuffed in the middle of a board meeting, or a corrupt security chief caught sneaking out the back door with a suitcase full of cash. Real justice, at last. Though, I'll admit, part of me wondered how many more shadows were out there. And here's a twist nobody saw coming. A few of those guys who'd worked for Crane, the real bad apples, they started flipping. Turns out, they kept records too, scared for their own lives, ready to trade everything for a deal. Each confession opened up another web, another set of victims, and the feds were ready this time. With every case, another community got a little safer. The cabin became something of a pilgrimage site. Law enforcement, survivors, folks wanting to see the place where justice fought back. Sometimes, I'd stand in the doorway and just listen to their stories, handing out coffee, shaking hands, feeling the weight lift. Bit by bit, Rusty always seemed to know which visitor needed a little extra comfort. He'd lean into them, eyes bright, tail thumping, and you'd see years of hurt start to crack open. Dogs, man, they know. Sarah left DHS eventually. Said she wanted to make a real difference without all the red tape. She opened up her own investigative firm, using the methods we developed, and started teaching others how to protect their communities from inside. I never thought my girl would be running her own show, but I guess justice runs in the blood. And you know what? The old HOA board is gone, replaced by people who care about the lake, the neighbors, the families. We even put up a little memorial for Ethan and everyone else who lost their lives fighting corruption. Some nights, I sit by the water with Rusty. Sometimes Sarah joins us, and I swear you can feel the whole lake breathe easier. Peace isn't perfect, but it's real. Look, I'm not some hero. I'm just a stubborn old man who loved his son and his dog, who knew right from wrong and finally got tired of watching bullies win. But if there's one thing this whole wild ride taught me, it's this. Corruption only grows in the dark. Shine a light, any light, and you'll be amazed who steps up beside you. So yeah, maybe next time you hear about some HOA nonsense, or see a neighbor getting pushed around, you'll remember our story. Maybe you'll be the one to stand up, even if your voice shakes. Because if an old cop and his dog can change the world from a cabin on Pine Lake, imagine what you could do with your own story. Drop a comment. What would you do if you were in my shoes? Share this with someone who needs to hear it. Justice isn't just for heroes. Sometimes it starts with you.